everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which I find out just how horrible I am for being what I am. And I come to you live from Crater Valley on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday. Tumultuous Thursday, because it was month end and there was billing to do, and yesterday was a 11-hour day or something like that. Yeah, I had quite a bear of a day yesterday. That's why I was effectively offline for the better part of yesterday, and still kind of recovering from all of that. But that's thankfully in the past now. It's in the past, the distant past of 24 hours ago, and here we are. Once again, the wonderful world of off-brand TED Talks. And boy, howdy, do I have some big fun for you today. Why do men take credit for women's work? Now, I gotta protest against this claim. I have to say it is absolutely 100% not true. At least for myself. I would never take credit for making a sandwich that I didn't make myself. So I think it's proven. I think we're done. We don't even need to watch this thing now, right? Okay. But before we get into this week's topic, who's joining me on this beautiful Thursday evening? Let's go down. Roll call here. Datura Jones, good evening. Noah Sencio, good evening. Brittany Holland, good evening. Zed the Snarky, good evening. Mike R., good evening. Advocatus Diaboli, good evening. Tyr Alexander, the gentleman. Oh, giving yourself a promotion, I see. Good evening. Kiro Soldier, good evening. Who else is here? Let's see. Shell D, good evening. Vader 35, good evening. Shadowclaw, good evening. Derek LaRue, holy cats. Derek, thank you so much. That is ridiculously generous of you. Appreciate it, as always, for your continued support and generosity. Hope you're having a good evening, and I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you so much. Who else do we have here? Jessifer, 26, good evening. Attorney Eris, good evening. Attorney Eris, do you happen to represent the Golden Apple by any chance? No, don't ask me why I know that. Tall Person, good evening. Chicago Mike, good evening. Twisted Skipster, good evening. A2P, good evening. Non-Vitae Rex, good evening. Fostonia, good evening. Roger Reynolds, good evening. Bruno Montiero, good evening. Keeverdam, just stopping by. Good evening, Keeverdam. Everybody say hi to Keeverdam. Jonathan Peterson, good evening. Mark Smart, good evening. Mark Smart sounds like the title of like a Garbage Pail Kids card. No offense to you, Mark. It just sounds like that's the kind of name you'd see on a Garbage Pail Kids card, which is a compliment. I swear it's a compliment. Some Namniel Nation, good evening. Can't stay for the live show, but just wanted to stop in and say hi. Why do I take credit for women's work? Because I made that sandwich. That's right. Who made that? Who made that sandwich? Let's see who else is here. Tack Alpaca, good evening. Okay, I'm going to try. And tell me if I get even part of it right, okay? Mishiro Kurugi. Mishiru. Did I get the first part right? Mishiru? Okay, you tell me. Put it out for me phonetically, and I will do my best to remember. Good evening. Megan Ring, good evening. Who else is here? Holy cats. So many people. Anybody I miss? Okay, I think that's everybody. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, I will attempt to say good evening at some point as well. But with all that being said, let's get into tonight's subject. Why do men take credit for women's work? Tonight's bingo card is bingo card C. C as in Catherine de Medici, which was the winner on the Twitter poll to choose tonight's bingo card. If you'd like to join in on the Twitter poll each week to choose the bingo card, be sure to follow me on Twitter, X, at scribe_light. So, let's see. What's this? Kiro Soldier. It says, let's celebrate first super on a live stream. Holy cow. Well, I am honored. Thank you, Kiro Soldier, so much. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Yay, it's your first super chat. Yay. And also, C. Thomas. Let me bring you up here. Good evening to you, C. Thomas. Hey, Scribbles, I take credit for women's work because they nag me enough to do it for them. Oh! Yeah, I imagine there's going to be plenty of jokes in this one, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe our speaker will have a point. Can't be sure. Also, before I forget, the top of the chat box, please take a look at the fundraisers up there for our friends James Colley, Grisella, Maddie, and Angry Illinoisian. Each of them and their families, in one way or another, have experienced a hardship recently, and I'd really appreciate if you take a look at those when you have the opportunity. If you can donate, thank you so much. If you can't, that's fine. But if you can share those out on social media, that'd be very much appreciated. All right. Let's see. Okay, well, here's the test. You got the second part right when you sounded it out. The first part is pronounced Michiru. Okay. Michiru Kururugi, I think. All right. Well, I'm giving it a shot. So at least please extend me some credit for that. I appreciate it. I like learning new names that I don't know. All right. Well, with that, let's get ready for this. This one clocks in at just over 17 minutes. Oh my gosh. I'll start off with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it, and then we will proceed. Ooh.
Men take credit for women's work for one reason.
Oh, one reason. Let's see. Okay, let's go down the list of possibilities. Male fragility, or some kind of where you feel a feeling of inadequacy, right? Or thin ego, toxic masculinity, perhaps. For one reason. Okay. I'm guessing it's going to be some kind of sense of inferiority, emasculation, superiority complex, sexism, misogyny.
Because they can.
All right, well, roll credits.
It's just one of the many injustices women endure in their lives simply because they're female.
Oh, okay. And a man has never taken credit for another man's work. Thomas Edison. And a woman has never taken credit for a man's work. I can't think of an example. I guess there isn't an example. There's no examples of such a thing. Okay.
I'll give you another example.
You didn't give us a... Wait. Wait. You didn't give us a first example. You can't give me another example until you give me an example. Okay, going to the bingo card, because I think we might already have something on the board. I don't know if that's contradicts own point or argument, but how about mind reading assumes motives? How about that one? That sound all right? So remember, this is bingo card C. Links are in the description circling mind reading, assumes motives, and free space, because free is the best price.
When I was a young lawyer, I asked a judge for a 15-minute break during trial so I could breastfeed my newborn baby girl.
Uh-huh. Okay. Is this going to be an anecdote that we believe happened?
She wasn't sitting under my chair. She was in a private room being cared for by my mom.
Uh-huh.
The judge said no.
Okay. He denied your request. Is that taking credit for someone else's work? Is this question for the for you guys in the chat? Is this too loud right now? It doesn't feel loud to me, but maybe just a smidge. Should I turn it down a little bit? Let me know in the chat. Let's see. It's a story that never happened. Well, it might be a story that happened. We'll have to see what the outcome is. Chicago Mike says, what sex was the judge? I guess that is important. I'm assuming it was a man, obviously. I mean, a woman could never obviously ascend to a judgeship. So
we don't take breaks for that.
Okay. Well, that might be minor sexism insensitivity, I suppose.
This was the same judge who 4 weeks earlier granted my opponent a 1-month delay in the trial because my bulging belly might prejudice the jury in my favor.
what was the case about? I'm going to circle anecdote that probably never happened. Or, well, no, I'm going to circle anecdote that probably never happened. That seems, and besides it, also it's a weightless example because it has nothing to do with taking credit for a woman's work. Unless she brings it around to that in the next 15 seconds or something. So let's see, where is on this card anecdote that probably never happened? Where did I put that? There it is up at the top. Okay, under the G. I won't make the obvious joke there. Okay. Okay, weightless example. Weightless example. Circling, boy, we're already on our way here. All right.
Many years later, I had to give birth to my 5th child.
Holy cats. 5 kids, dang.
On a Sunday night, I induced her birth so I could get to the state Supreme Court Wednesday morning.
Okay, so you made a decision that favored your career over your health, I guess?
This was at
yeah, look at that guy. Okay, watch that guy again. Look at the look on that guy's face. Also, he kind of reminds me of Benjamin Boyce. No offense to Benjamin Boyce, but he just looks a little bit like Benjamin Boyce.
Morning. This was after a different judge.
Is he a paid plant? Is that guy a paid plant to look that disheveled about this example? What the heck?
Denied my request to schedule the hearing prior to my due date.
All right, sorry. I was laughing too much at sidelong glance guy. Let's try that again. Let's get the fullness of that story again. Sorry.
State Supreme Court Wednesday morning.
Right.
This was after a different judge.
Wait. This is after a different judge. Okay, so we had one judge who wouldn't let you breastfeed. The same judge gave the opposing counsel a month off while you had your kid. That sounds more like it was a favor to you than anything else, since they weren't sure when you were going to have birth. So why start the trial if you're just on your way to having a kid? And he gave some space on either side of the possibility so that it wouldn't interrupt the trial. That seems the most reasonable thing to me, but now you're blaming the judge. And okay, anyway, then we had another judge who you decided to induce early so you'd make it to court on time. And now we're on to a third judge. Okay, what's the third judge do again?
Wednesday morning.
Right.
This was after a different judge denied my request to schedule the hearing prior to my due date.
Okay. So not the judge you were going to see after you induced, but okay. And
I got out of the hospital on a Tuesday afternoon, trudged to court the next morning, still in my maternity clothes.
Your fashion choices are your fashion choices, I guess.
Utterly exhausted.
You didn't have backup counsel? No one else could be there in your stead at all? Your law firm or whoever didn't have a second chair that could sit in for you for the time being? I mean, I think having a medical emergency or a medical situation such as that would at least give you a pass from showing up on day one.
In a bit of pain. And carrying a 2.5-day-old baby.
You carried a 2.5-day-old baby into the courtroom? Okay, well, we definitely circled anecdote that probably never happened, or at least not in this overdramatic way. Also, still not an example of her offered title.
So you're probably thinking, what's with those judges?
No, I'm thinking that you're leaving out some vital facts about the situation, because that sounds patently ridiculous. And also, you chose to induce. I have a very hard time believing that either A, if you were in the hospital for the completely reasonable reason of giving birth, that the court would not make some allowance for you, or that expecting the possibility that you may be giving birth around the time of the hearing or the trial or whatever else, that you wouldn't have planned out to have a backup or a secondary counsel there to sit in for you. Because that just sounds like due diligence on your part for your client, whoever that is. So no, I think there's a lot of information missing from this because it doesn't sound credible. I mean, if I were a jury member, I'd be asking a heck of a lot of questions. Oh, and I am.
Why would they do that?
Obviously, they're sexist.
Aren't there laws against sex discrimination?
Yes. Was this sex discrimination, or is just this bad scheduling, or are you leaving something out?
There are, and there were back then. But they don't work very well.
You're a lawyer. Why didn't you sue? Why didn't you file a complaint? Or did you? What happened?
Because the United States Constitution does not protect women equally under any laws.
Okay, so is this going to be a sales pitch for the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment? Because if it is, then she's pushing at an open door as far as I'm concerned. By all means, pass the Equal Rights Amendment that says that no law shall be enforced or shall be enforced differently on the basis of sex. I'm misquoting the actual law. It's like all of one sentence long. But by all means, if that's what you're going for, fine. Can't wait to see what happens with the draft, with parental cases, with murder cases, when you have a teacher who goes the extra mile with one of their underage students. Yeah, I can't wait to see how that all averages out for women when you can't hide behind any kind of sexism, benevolent or otherwise. It's going to be something else. Chicago Mike brings up a very good point. Plays victim. Yes, I think you may be correct. So I'm going to circle that on the board. Thank you, Mike. All right. Well, anyway, tell us more of your tale of woe.
Including laws against sex discrimination.
Yeah, there are. So if the judge violated any of those laws or violated any of the statutes under jurisprudence for lawyers or, the Bar Association or whatever else, you filed a complaint. You're going to tell us about that fight, yes?
Most people don't know this about the Constitution.
That there's nothing in the Constitution about equal. Okay, well, I don't know if you know this. There's a lot of things in the Constitution now that weren't there in the past. But at this point, tell me, under the Constitution, what rights do women not enjoy? Just lay them out for me. I mean, maybe there are. You're a lawyer. You probably know this better than I do. What rights do women not enjoy under the law today? Because I swear, if you're going to bring up the 1800s or, the Louisiana Purchase or something in this, you've already lost the battle. Thank you, Alan Thyler, for the Samurai #1 Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat.
Wowie, wow.
That's a P-Dog Night Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate it. It's very generous of you. Hope you're having a good evening. The weird thing about, just as a side, the weird thing about the super sticker animated things on the super chats, I can't like those. Like if it's just text, I can click the little heart button and there's like a little heart thing that comes up, but they don't give you one of those on when there's an animated GIF. Not that I'm complaining. I'm just saying that if anybody's wondering, like, you liked Chicago Mike's comment, why didn't you like mine? Apparently I don't have that option. So this is my verbal give a little heart to Alan Thyler. Thank you, Alan. Okay, anyway, what were you saying?
Because we don't teach it in schools and we don't talk about it very much.
What rights do women not enjoy under current law?
To the contrary. We promote the idea of equality for all as if it is a well-settled foundational principle of American democracy.
Well, I mean, it is a foundational principle. It hasn't been put into action the way that one would hope over the course of time and the fullness of our country's history, but as we have proceeded to form a more perfect union over time, I again ask, and I'll probably will throughout this thing now, under the law as it currently stands, what rights do women not enjoy? Now, I could see her coming up with something like, there is no federally mandated maternity leave, right, or parental leave for, work and such. That we're one of the few countries in the Western world that doesn't have it under federal law that you get maternity leave or parental leave off for the birth of a child. I could see that. I could see that as a legitimate complaint, depending on how you hash it out. Okay, if that's where she wants to go. But then it's not just about women either. It's also about fathers. So it's not, equal rights under the law. So again, I'm waiting.
In fact, the words equal justice under law are carved into stone on the outside of the United States Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C., even though that very court has repeatedly ruled that those words do not apply to women.
When? I mean, again, within the recent last, say, 20 years or so, the modern times. Is this going to be about abortion? Because abortion has gone back to the states. Roe v. Wade was not a law. It was a precedent. It was a guidance. It wasn't permanent. It was temperamental at best. And so the decision about abortion rights has dissolved back down to the states unless or until Congress passes a law and amends the Constitution to make it a federal law. If they want to enshrine Roe v. Wade in the Constitution, then Congress has to do it. But unless or until that they do, it's the sovereignty of each individual state to decide. That's the law. You're a lawyer, so you know how this goes.
You probably already know this, but this problem is not unique to the United States.
Okay, compare equality of rights under the law in the United States with any other non-Westernized country. Tell me.
In 2020, the United Nations released a report in which it said,
because the United Nations is such a trustworthy body these days.
No country has achieved gender equality.
There's no such thing as gender equality because the genders are not equal. But what are you talking about? Under the law? Again, give me an example. In America, I mean, I know that there is a lack of gender equality under the law in many, 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 many places in this world. So if you start talking about Iran, right, or Saudi Arabia, or China or something, yeah, I can believe it. So tell me what it is we are lacking in the United States. And again, if this is a pitch for the ERA, you got me. I'm all for it.
No country. And in their report, they describe many of the ways that women suffer harm because of their inequality, including obvious things like unequal pay.
Okay, so you're talking about a summary review of all the countries on the planet by the UN, and you're going to apply these to the United States. Okay, well, let's go over to the bingo card because unequal pay is economic disparity. We can circle that one on the board. So you're going to go for the wage gap? Rather than it being its earnings gap, no, the wage gap? Okay.
Disproportionately high rates of rape, domestic abuse, sex trafficking.
Okay, again, if you're talking about a global survey, which throws in a whole bunch of countries, jurisdictions, laws, and elsewise that would completely countermand what we have in this country, you're right. There is a lot of that in the world. There always has been. Can we stick to, our country, our laws, the ones that you apparently practice under?
And as I mentioned, discrimination against pregnant women. Lesser known harms can be harder to see and even harder to measure, like men taking credit for women's work.
Of which you still haven't provided an example. I know that they exist. Don't get me wrong. I know that they exist. But you open up this talk by not giving an example of that.
I just finished writing a book about this phenomenon in which I tell the stories of more than 25 women whose work was credited to men.
More than 25. So 7,000? 26?
And I explain in the book why the driving force behind the problem is women's inequality under the law.
Women's inequality under the law. Okay, well, what are some of these examples of 25 or more? When did they take place? Did any of them take place at a time where there were laws that, or the absence of laws that would have protected such things, or allowed a woman to have a pathway to complaint? Has a man ever taken credit for another man's work? Has a woman ever taken credit for another woman's work? I would love to know.
Women's inequality under the law. How could it not be? If you're not entitled to equal treatment under the law, you're easier to steal from.
What are you, under current law, not entitled to as a woman? Give me an example. I mean, I will take a thin example at this point in the absence of no example at all.
Because you have a worse chance of winning if you fight back. One of the women I write about is a little-known scientist named Eunice Foote.
Eunice Foote. That name, sincerely, that sounds familiar.
Eunice was raised in upstate New York in the 1800s in a large farming family.
The 1800s, you say? Let's see. Gosh, has anything happened in this country under the law since the 1800s that might have changed the dynamics of things? Has anything happened culturally in this country since the 1800s that might have changed the dynamics of the... probably not. Yeah, probably nothing. It's probably negligible. Thank you, C. Thomas. I'm checked out. She's out in delusion country. I'm still waiting. Well, okay, I guess this will be an example of a man taking credit for a woman's work, but she's framed it under law, under rights, under the Constitution, which is, as we know, a malleable document and has changed over time. But she wants to use an example from the 1800s of a man taking advantage of a woman. Okay. All right. Also, a couple more good evenings here. This is Kyle. Good evening. You're a ridiculous lunatic. Good evening. I tried to read your entire name all at once because it's a run-on word and my brain goes completely. Holy cats! Brett-eyed Stoka, man, thank you so much. That's ridiculously generous of you. Thank you, Brett. 1800s, what a time to be alive. Hey, you know, as far as like London by gaslight kind of intrigue and setting and everything, sure. Would I want to live there for sure? Nah. But the 1800s, I'm sure nothing bad could happen to a woman at the hands of a man in the 1800s and him not be held accountable for anything. I suppose. Young geezer, why are there so many people, so many mental people acting like intellectuals? Okay, I don't claim to be an intellectual. I'm sorry. I just, my mommy thinks I'm smart, but I'm not mental. I have a certificate. They said, they wouldn't allow me to use anything other than crayons to write letters because they didn't allow anything sharp there. But they gave me a certificate. Okay? They swears.
Her parents believed that women and girls deserved an education as much as men and boys, so they sent her to the Troy Female Seminary, which at the time was one of the only colleges in the country that offered women an education that was equal to that which was offered to men.
Yeah, back in the 1800s, you say. Okay, well, her parents were very progressive.
This meant that Eunice could study math and science, as well as conversational French.
Great.
Eunice loved science.
Okay.
She absolutely loved it. She wanted to be a scientist. But women weren't welcome in the profession.
In the 1800s, you say?
So she built a lab in her home, established herself as an amateur, and started doing experiments.
Wow. I'm an amateur radio broadcaster. Except I don't actually... Well, I mean, I guess technically... I mean, Wi-Fi is radio waves, right? And since I can't have a computer near enough to my router because there's no cable connection in a room where there's the ability... I guess I am kind of a radio broadcaster.
In 1856, she designed an experiment to look at the effect of the sun's heat on different gases in the atmosphere. And what she found was that carbon dioxide traps the sun's heat more and takes longer to dissipate once the sun's heat is removed.
Oh, we got to draw this back to climate change. All right.
In other words, Eunice had discovered the greenhouse effect.
Oh my gosh. The greenhouse effect, which was supposed to have like cooked the entire planet 20 years ago, as I was told when I was like 6 or 7 in elementary school.
She was so excited. She wrote up her findings and she wanted to present them at the AAAS, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which was a very prestigious academic conference.
In the 1800s.
But women weren't welcome.
In the 1800s. I can just like append that to every statement she makes about this example.
So a man presented her paper for her.
Okay, so she found a way around the rules. All right. I mean, did the man steal it from her, or did she give it to a man to be her proxy?
And good for him, he gave her full credit.
Oh, okay. So he didn't take credit for her work. So your first active example isn't actually an example.
Later that same year, 1856, Eunice's paper was published in the AJSA, a highly regarded journal, the American Journal for Science and Arts.
And then, and then some guy put his name on it, huh?
It was the first time a woman's paper on physics had been published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal.
Except some guy put his name on it.
So it was a big deal.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop here.
3 years later...
Wait, no! So wait. Okay. So Eunice Foote discovers the greenhouse effect. She writes a paper on the greenhouse effect. She can't attend the conference where she wants to present this paper. She hands it to a man who gives her full credit for the paper and is just effectively a mouthpiece, a proxy for her at this conference. Then this paper is published in a prestigious journal under her own name. Okay, I'm waiting. It's the waiting that's the hardest part.
In 1859, a man named John Tyndall, who had published a paper on eye color in the same journal where Eunice's paper had appeared.
I'm sorry, about eye color, and then she gives us a direct look at her own eye color. You mean the same prestigious science journal that Eunice's paper appeared in? Okay.
Conducted a scientific study similar to Eunice's.
Similar. So, concurrent too. Okay. Did he steal her work? I guess that's the question. Did this guy steal her work?
And he came up with similar findings.
Welcome to the scientific method? So wait, he corroborated what another scientist had proposed in a paper, you say? This is like the pink tax argument, right? It's like, Why does the ladies' razor cost $3 more than the men's razor? They do practically the same thing.
Only he didn't cite Eunice's paper.
Well, did he use her research in his? I'm asking sincerely. I don't know.
He didn't mention Eunice at all.
Are you supposed to? Did he steal her work? Or did he just pursue a similar line? Okay, again, I don't know. This is her story.
In fact, he declared himself the first person to discover the effect of the sun's heat on carbon dioxide.
Okay, and anybody in the scientific community who knew anything about this field of study knew he was blowing smoke then? So wait, he never named her. The only way the title of your presentation works with this example is if, and I don't know, maybe she's coming to that. Okay, I don't know the history of this. Unless you're going to tell us that he plagiarized her work and gave her no credit, this example falls on its face.
He became world famous.
Did he plagiarize her work?
Eventually earned the title, the father of climate change.
Okay, well, I'd never heard of the guy until this story. The name Foote sounded familiar. Anybody in the chat who has the ability to look this up while I'm doing this, did he steal her work, or did he simply do similar research that led to a similar conclusion, and he just gained more prominence because he was a man or whatever? Because if he's taking credit for a woman's work, presumably he has to be stealing that work.
Buildings and institutes and satellites were named in his honor.
Why aren't you telling us that he stole her work?
Nobody honored Eunice.
Okay, you're leaving out vital context. You're not saying he stole her work. You said he did similar work, similar study, and that he didn't cite her paper. Well, I don't know. Did he know about her paper? Was her paper as publicized as other people's? Was it? I don't know. But you're not telling us, so I'm circling leaves out vital context.
That's how things went for a long time.
Two different scientists reach the same conclusion. One achieves more prominence than another. Yeah, that's never happened between two men before, obviously.
Until 2010, when a retired geologist happened upon an article about Eunice's paper in an 1857 trade magazine.
So it wasn't well publicized. So did the guy who... Was the second scientist guilty of plagiarism? Yes or no?
He was shocked.
Shocked, I tell you.
He wrote an article about his discovery and he shared it with the scientific community, and the truth started to come out.
Because he was a man. If a woman had written that article, no one would have paid attention.
And it's still coming out today.
Oh, okay.
Tyndall could never have gotten away with taking credit for Eunice's work.
Did he plagiarize her work? Did he not actually do the science that led to his paper? Did he just lift her work and take credit for it? You're not saying he did that. So was he aware of the paper? Was her paper well known? Okay, this is starting to insult my intelligence. What little I have, I know, even though I'm a mental patient.
If Eunice had been an equal person under the law.
Yes.
Convenient for Tyndall.
Yes, things were very different in the 1800s, you don't say.
Things didn't get any better for women a few years later in
Are you going to say 18-something again? You're going to say 18-something again, aren't you? You're talking about equality under the law, and we're sitting, what now, 220 some odd years in the past? Okay, great.
Later in 1868, when we adopted the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, even though it had a provision that gave equal rights to people.
Equal rights to people. Do you mean to say that in a country where the laws had been one way for a long time, a new federal law took a while to percolate through the states and society?
The specific language said, persons shall have equal protection of the laws.
Yeah, equal protection of the established laws. If there are no laws, you're a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Can you believe it?
Now, you'd think that would be good for women because women are persons, right?
Yeah, they have equal protection of the established laws.
Wrong. The Supreme Court repeatedly refused to rule that women were persons.
Well, what is a woman? Am I right? Am I right, fellas? I mean, that is the question. I don't even know if that was rim shot worthy. I couldn't help myself.
That didn't happen until 1971.
Oh, okay. Yeah, women weren't people until 1971. Just like history didn't begin until after 2016.
In 1971, the Supreme Court finally said, in the throes of the Civil Rights era, mind you, okay, fine, women can be persons under the Equal Protection Clause.
Okay. So at least for the last 50 years, women have been equal under the law, you say. When did you have your last kid again?
Great, you're thinking. Women are all set now, right?
I don't know. Tell me, what do women still lack under the law?
Wrong again.
Okay, those eyes.
There was a catch.
There was a catch.
The court's decision said women's equal protection rights would be unequally enforced in the courts. I know.
You mean like women being given favorable treatment in parental cases and criminal decisions and things like that? Not as a matter of law, but more as a matter of, I don't know, society and cultural mores and such.
Equal rights, unequal what?
Yeah, what?
It's a head scratcher, I know.
Well, why don't you clear it up for us? You're a lawyer.
How can a person have equal rights?
When they're being given favoritism on the basis of societal and cultural mores and norms. Where a judge uses their latitude. Notice I said there because a judge can be male or female. When a judge uses their latitude within sentencing guidelines and statutes to give favorable treatment to one gender over the other, to lean more towards the rights of the mother versus the rights of the father because mother. I don't know if you know this, but there has been more than one instance where a mother has been given custody of children that she decidedly should not have been given, and disaster has resulted. But primarily she was given custody because she was the mother, and men bad. So I don't know. Is that what that means?
It makes no sense. But that's exactly what the Supreme Court did in 1971, and it's exactly where women are today.
How? Give me an example, a today example, not an 1800s example, not a scientific kerfuffle example, a legal example. I mean, not even your example from the 1800s had anything to do with the laws. It had to do with different pathways to discovery and credit and publication, at best. So give me a today example under the law where women are not equal. And by not equal, I mean in the negative zone, let's say, right? Because they could be unequal in being given special treatment above men, but give me one where women are at a detriment under the law, specifically because they are women. Give me one example. Okay, I'm not saying there aren't any. Maybe there are. I don't know. Give me one example. Thank you, Mike R. I wonder if she's going to harken back to the Titanic sinking. I don't know. I don't know. You remember the Titanic, of course. It was men and what would be a good one? Oh, men and golf clubs first, right? Something like that. Hey, caramba.
Under the law.
Tell me. Example.
Now.
Yes.
Before you go off thinking that the solution is to just put better judges on the Supreme Court.
No. You need to give me an active example of what you're talking about. If there is a law, if there is a loophole in the law that somehow penalizes women simply for being women, name it and then propose that Congress change it. Otherwise, I literally have no idea what you're talking about.
Let me tell you why that won't work.
Okay, tell me why that won't work.
The leading case on the status of women under the Equal Protection Clause was issued by the Supreme Court in 1996.
1996, okay.
And it said, women are not entitled to equal treatment under the Equal Protection Clause.
Really? The Supreme Court said that. 1996, the Supreme Court said women specifically are not. Okay, again, I am not a legal scholar. What case are you talking about? What decision was this?
The author of that decision.
What was the case?
Was a justice named Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Look at that! What is the... What? Okay, are these inserts? I mean, were they filming the audience and just lucking out on cutting the audience for these looks? Okay. All right. For those of you listening at home, I apologize, but there's no other way to describe this. The camera, as soon as she says Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we get a cut to an audience member of a lady looking like somebody just told her that they stepped on her puppy's tail intentionally 17 times. I'm trying to come up with a family-friendly metaphor. Anyway, somebody find me this law. If she doesn't give us a title of this ruling, somebody find me the law where Ruth Bader Ginsburg said women, specifically women, are not entitled to equal protection under the 14th Amendment. What is that? I mean, again, the Supreme Court has done some goofy things in our history, so I could believe that something has or could be extrapolated to have said to have had happened like that. So tell me.
I know. RBG.
What was the name of the case? What case? Cite the case. Thank you, Will Boone. She has a problem following dictum of the court. She has a problem following her own argument. Okay, men taking credit for women's work. And she doesn't give us an example, at least an assured example of that. And even when she tries to, it doesn't have anything to do with the law, which is apparently the framing under which this entire talk is taking place. And then she names off a decision by the Supreme Court, doesn't cite the case as a good lawyer would. They'd say something like, Texas v. Smithsonian or something, 1996, where Ruth Bader Ginsburg said XYZ PDQ. No, just, okay, so 1996, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 14th Amendment. Somebody tell me, what was that ruling?
A few years later.
Okay, fine. I will look it up. Hold on. All right. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 1996, 14th Amendment, women equal protection decision. Okay. This should be fairly quick. All right, let's try this. Okay, Virginia, 518 U.S., 515, 531 to 532, 1996, Ginsburg. Explaining that Reed was the first time in the nation the Supreme Court had ruled in favor of a woman who complained that her state had denied her the equal protection of its laws. I guess that's too abstract for me to understand. Okay, United States v. Virginia, 1996. Okay, I'm going to read this rather than try to pull it up. Summary. Beginning in the 1970s, the Supreme Court decided a series of cases that applied to the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause to policies that discriminated on the basis of sex. These cases culminated in Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's landmark opinion in United States v. Virginia. In 1990, the United States sued Virginia on behalf of several women who wanted to attend the Virginia Military Institute, or VMI, a public all-male university. The Supreme Court ruled that VMI's male-only admissions policy violated the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. In her majority opinion for the court, Justice Ginsburg explained that for a state policy providing differential treatment on the basis of sex to survive 14th Amendment scrutiny, the state must offer, quote, an exceedingly persuasive justification. In the end, Justice Ginsburg concluded that Virginia's attempts to justify VMI's all-male admission policy failed such a test. As a result, the court ruled that women had a constitutional right to be admitted to VMI. Where did Ginsburg say, how did that come out as women don't have equal protection under the 14th Amendment? Where? Okay, I don't have the time to read this entire deal. So if someone can find me the quote where Justice Ginsburg said, women do not either deserve or do not have equal protection under the 14th Amendment, by all means. But I have a hard time believing our speaker's anecdote, which we've already circled, anecdote that probably never happened. So, okay.
Her colleague, Justice Antonin.
Sorry, let me back up a little bit. Yeah, we get shocked-faced lady again. Okay.
RBG. A few years later, her colleague, Justice Antonin Scalia, explained what that ruling means for women when he said, the Constitution doesn't require unequal treatment or discrimination against women. The only question is whether it prohibits it. It doesn't.
Well, it does. Title 6 and Title 7. Just as two examples, right? Or, perhaps what, the 19th Amendment? I don't know. Again, I'm having a hard time believing her when she cites anything dealing with Supreme Court history because I'm not sure we're being given the full story.
And he's right. So what do we do?
Okay, from the chat real quick. Hold on before I miss it. Advocates Diaboli, Scribelite. When she was still a lawyer, Ruth Bader Ginsburg argued cases where she argued that up till then, the 14th did not cover them, but it should. She twisted it a bit, if you can believe it. Okay. Since I don't have a better square that I haven't already circled for this, and since so far I've been... we'll probably have more reasons to do so if past is prologue here, but this is a general overall statement for her argument thus far.
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
So massaging the facts of history and quotations from Supreme Court justices to bolster your own argument somehow. Yeah, that, she is a lawyer, but all the same, no points are given.
Well, obviously, we can't turn to the Supreme Court for help.
Obviously. So let's just call the whole thing off.
No matter who we vote for and no matter which judges get on the court.
Yeah, things like the Civil Rights Act, gay marriage, affirmative action. Yeah, no good No good comes out of the court, ever. The Supreme Court is always just a untrustworthy, evil institution if you happen to be on the losing side of their decisions.
They've made it very clear, all sides of the aisle, they're not going to do the right thing.
The right thing, according to who? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You need to give me an example under law that says right now women are treated in the deficit under law explicitly because they are women. Again, name me that law or name me that obvious legal loophole, and I'll be right there with you arguing that Congress should zip it up or do away with it or revise it. Give it. I mean, you must have an example, an active, actual example, not revised or non-contextualized quotes from Supreme Court justices. If you're talking about law, there has to be something right now in writing that you can cite that backs up your argument.
But what we can do, what we the people can do, is fix the Constitution.
This is through the ERA, isn't it? This long, circuitous, scenic route to a point is bringing us the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, isn't it?
By amending it. Article 5 lets us do this, and we've done it many times.
And what happened the last time they tried to make the ERA law? Who rallied against the ERA? What was the linchpin to making the ERA go away? Women. Women argued against it because, at least as one example that I can actually give from history, it would put women into the draft. The draft could no longer be just for 18-year-old men. That was one of the complaints, one of the worries. But okay, go ahead.
We need to do it again.
Okay.
The amendment we need is called the Equal Rights Amendment.
Hey! I thought about it today. I didn't think it would happen again. I didn't make a stinger for my having a psychic moment. I should have. I was thinking about it. Boy, I should find a picture of Johnny Carson with his Karnak outfit on and put my face on there and everything. I should have. I thought about it, but I thought, nah, it's not going to happen again that quickly. I couldn't come up with something before the talk even got going, could I?
Or the ERA. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard of it.
Yes.
It states, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex.
I think that is almost a verbatim recitation of the law. It might be off by a word, but otherwise, sales pitch for product or service, it's true. Advocatus diaboli, I agree. It's not exactly a product or a service, but it definitely is a sales pitch. Not the most effective sales pitch, but it is. So we got that one.
Simple. Who could possibly object?
Women did. Tell me who objected back in the 70s when this sucker got, 34 of the 35 states to ratify it or whatever? Tell me who was at least one of, if not the greatest voice against it at the time. Come on.
Right?
Come on. Tell me.
Trust me.
Tell me.
Moneyed interests object strenuously to women's equality.
Moneyed interests. Okay. Okay, hold on. Okay. So, just as a reference point, I don't know if she'll bring this up or not. The ERA failed to meet the requisite number of state ratifications, which is 38, by Congress's deadline of June 30th, 1982, so it was not adopted as a constitutional amendment. In January 2020, Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the ERA, but that's basically just symbolic because the deadline had already passed, unless Congress changes the rules around. the deadline had passed. They have to start over again, have all the other states re-ratify it. But let's see who. Let me find. Who argued against it? There was one particular lady whose name I'm forgetting right now. Let's see. What was that lady's name? There was one like famous female like celebrity or commentator at the time. Oh, gosh, I'm forgetting her name all of a sudden. Of course I am. When I need to know it at hand, it suddenly goes bye-bye. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk, for the happy, dancy, smiley dog cat fox. Oh, dog cat fox.
Well.
Tailed feature dog cat fox. Thank you so much, Mr. Tickletrunk. Appreciate it. Man, I wish I had more time to look this up, because I looked this up a long time ago. There was a actually I did a TEDx on this years ago where the lady was arguing for the Equal Rights Amendment. And I made those same arguments then as I do now. I'm all for it. I forget which one it was. It was like legal something. It was another lawyer. It was another lady talking about being a lawyer who was arguing for it. Anyway, maybe somebody. Oh, Phyllis Schlafly. That's what it was. Advocates Diaboli. You got it. Yep, Phyllis Schlafly. That's it. I knew it was like on the tip of my tongue. I was like, was it Peggy something? No, Phyllis Schlafly. Yes. Okay. Let's real quick before I completely lose steam here. All right, Phyllis Schlafly. Schlafly became an outspoken opponent of the Equal Rights Amendment during the 1970s as the organizer of the Stop ERA campaign. STOP was a backronym for Stop Taking Our Privileges. Privileges such as not being sent to the draft board. The History Channel. That's the thing. The ERA was on track to become the 27th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Then a grassroots conservative movement halted its momentum. Okay, so was the grassroots conservative movement funded by the moneyed interests? Is that what she's arguing? Because maybe that's it. That could be it. Let's see. Open her interpretation. No, I don't want that video to play. Stop it. Why are you playing a video? I don't want. No. Did it say who funded this? Schlafly's conservative values led her to staunchly oppose feminism in all its forms, Faulkner says, and the ERA was certainly part of the feminist agenda. Quote, she feared that greater sex equality would lead to a moral decline in society by changing the roles that women had traditionally held, she says. No, don't let Ranting Monkey get anywhere near this argument. Don't let him. Let's see. Okay, well, anyway. It doesn't say in this article who funded it, or at least I can't find it off the top of my head. So is that what you're talking about? Are you going to name Phyllis Schlafly?
Which is why the ERA is still not in the Constitution, even though we've been fighting for it for over a century.
No, because it couldn't make the number of ratified states by the deadline. It had actually made it all the way to 37, but not 38 by the deadline in 1982. So, in fact, there were a whole bunch of states that did approve of it. They just couldn't meet the deadline. So the moneyed interests in this country, whoever you're talking about, won by the barest of threads. Now, I have heard tell that they are thinking about trying to either accept Virginia's ratification retroactively or change things around and resubmit the ERA to be ratified by the existing states that already did somehow, some way. I don't know. But okay, you want the ERA to go through. I do too. You think it's going to change anything like you say? I don't know.
December 2023 marks the 100th anniversary of the first time the ERA was filed with Congress.
Uh-huh.
We've been fighting for it constantly ever since, but most people don't even know what it is.
Well, I'm not most people now, am I?
After all, women look like they're doing okay. We have a woman vice president, right?
Well, I like the fact that she's kind of shrugs that off. And she's arguing against sex discrimination. Are you going to talk about the fact that Joe Biden discriminated against anybody who wasn't a woman in his selection for vice president? Are you going to argue for benevolent discrimination? I guess you're not. I mean, you're shrugging off Kamala Harris as what? A publicity stunt? Well, I guess I'm right there with you as well.
Right?
Yeah. Of course, well, but that was an example of gender equality. It's not like she was voted into the office or anything.
When I give talks about the ERA, I'm always asked this question.
Okay. What's the question? Okay. Putting on my Karnak hat. Wendy, why it's going to be something like, why do we need the ERA? Right? I'm doing my Professor X thing. I'm putting my fingers to my temples. Wendy, why do we need the ERA? We have so many other laws that already do everything that it does. Something like that. Okay? That's my prediction. All right, so let me back up just a second here, just so I don't cut her off.
I'm always asked this question. Okay. Wendy, I don't get it. What's the problem? What rights do men have that women do not have?
Oh, well, see, she asked the question I asked at the top of this when I wasn't trying to make a psychic thing. But yeah, okay, all right, you know what? Fair enough. I asked it. You're asked it. What is the answer?
My answer is always the same.
I'm not even going to guess. What is the answer?
That's the wrong question.
That's the wrong question. No, it is a completely valid question, because if the ERA being instituted is to mean anything, then it has to be instituted to solve an identifiable problem, to solve an identifiable weakness in current law that requires a constitutional amendment. It is a perfect question. It is the most relevant question. If you're going to introduce a law, if you're going to alter the Constitution, it has to be to address an identifiable problem. You don't get to dodge that. In this particular game, that is a move you are disallowed from making. It is the perfect question. It is the only relevant question that can be had regarding your proposal. What rights do men possess that women do not under existing law? But okay, that's the wrong question. What is the right question?
The right question is, are women entitled to equal treatment under any laws?
Yes, the 14th Amendment says so. That's what the 14th Amendment says. That's what it guarantees. That under existing law, everyone is to be treated equally under existing law. The 14th Amendment did not make all laws and all things equal. It said that as the law sits, it cannot be applied differently to people just because of what they are. Now, how well that's been practiced over time is completely valid to argue, but that's what the 14th Amendment says. That is the mechanism that it is to serve in the Constitution. So yes, we have the 14th Amendment, and as new laws are passed, as new things are put into place, everyone gets treated equally by the 14th Amendment, overseeing them all. I'm not a legal scholar. I'm sure there are loopholes. I'm sure there are exceptions, but that is what it is there to do. That is what it is meant to do. That's what it just did against affirmative action. So please, please tell me, what rights do men have that women do not under existing law? Why is the ERA necessary? I'm all for its passage, but I'm also for debating its necessity.
The answer to that question is no. None. Zero.
No, none, zero. No, none, zero. There are...
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?
Right?
Okay. It's your show.
From getting a dog license to child custody laws, freedom of speech, and even laws against slavery.
What? I hit the button too soon. What?
What?
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Right?
Dog license, slavery. Name the law. Seriously, I will take that back. If you name the dog licenses, I'll give you the easy one. Tell me where, under existing, established, enforced law, a woman is disallowed from getting a license for her puppy.
No laws must, as a constitutional matter, be applied equally to women.
Then tell me, tell me true, what is the 14th Amendment? What is what is the Equal Protection Clause? What does that do? What does that mean under federal law? What does that mean? What does it mean?
No laws.
No laws. No laws. Guys, there are no laws.
This leaves women in a constant state of legal insecurity.
Oh, no! Collectivize his own demographics, circling that one. Let's see. Marginalization, at least in spirit, if not in the word. Word salad, circling that one. What else we got here? Privilege. I think she used the word privilege somewhere in here. And if not, well, I'm going to say it because apparently men have privileges, women do not under law. Benevolent condescension. By fudging history and talking to people like they're just somewhat lesser than that. You know what happened when I did that?
Bingo.
What?
Of course!
Yep, we've got one bingo across the top. Let's see. Systemic institution. Their system of laws, the institution of the Supreme Court, society in general, on and on and on.
Bingo.
What? Bingo! Yeah!
Of course!
We have a bingo down the diagonal. Feminism, I'm going to circle that one because the ERA and everything else. Let's see, childhood or family anecdote. Oh, yeah, she talked about her and her kids. That's right. I forgot about that. She did talk about her and her family having 5 kids. Circle that one. What else we got on here? Contradicts own point or argument. By thus far not giving us a single active example under modern law where men have more rights than women. Yeah, so there's that. And because of that.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
There's our third bingo. And right now, as the card sits, we kind of have a nice little arrow pattern on the board right now with all my circles and things. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. We'll leave some for the after show here.
You might even call it a kind of constitutional terrorism.
Okay, attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. Might as well. Sure, why not? Why not? You know what? She did talk about equality under the law, equity, equity, diversity, inclusion. Sure, why not? I'm feeling a little generous today. So, and as a result,
I had a dog, and his name was.
What?
I had a dog, and his name was.
Bingo! Of course!
Give me a breather. I need a breather from making circles here.
Because of the fear and anxiety that comes from knowing that your government, all officials in all branches at all times, state and federal, your government has the right and the constitutionally granted authority to treat you differently and worse simply because you're female. We can pass laws all day long.
Yeah, I guess we could.
Equal pay laws, equal this laws, equal, all look like they're really good for women.
But they obviously do nothing. The only thing that will save us is the ERA.
But so long as they are not enforced equally, so long as the government isn't required by the Constitution to enforce them equally on
setting aside the 14th Amendment. Okay. Again, I am not a lawyer. I am not a legal scholar. But tell me about, okay, you know what? I will ask the center of all information, the internet. What is the Equal Protection Clause? The 14th Amendment. Let's read this, shall we? This comes from the Library of Congress. The key portion of the 14th Amendment: no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. What are you talking about?
Behalf of women, they're worthless.
Let's start. Let me back up a bit. I don't want to cut her off unduly here. Luminara unduly.
Really good for women. But so long as they are not enforced equally, so long as the government isn't required by the Constitution to enforce them equally on behalf of women, they're worthless. Meaningless.
Pardon me, that was my slip of the thumb.
It's like pushing crumbs around on a broken plate. They just fall through the cracks.
Yeah, no, something has cracked here. I will stipulate to that.
We have to fix the plate first.
Okay, so go ahead. Pass it. You know what? If Congress said tomorrow, the whole deadline on ratification of a law, if the law has not changed, if the states still affirm, if they have not since then denied, decried, or voided their previous ratification, we're going to institute the ERA tomorrow. I'd be like, okay. Yeah, Virginia made their move. Okay. I mean, here's the thing. And I believe I said this, or at least something just like this, when I did the previous TEDx, back to the scripted TEDx days, on this same subject. I said, go ahead and pass it. I don't think it's going to have the effect you say it will, but I'm all for it. So this is one of those rare instances where you have a TEDx talk that is arguing for something that I'm completely on board with, but the argument itself is just absolute Looney Tunes in arriving there.
We have to get the word out.
Okay.
So that people can come together in unity and fight for this basic human right to equal treatment under the law for all, not just some.
What is the I'm sounding like Alex Trebek. What is the 14th Amendment?
We have to get the word out, and I don't know how to do that.
I don't know how to tell anybody about the ERA. Nobody knows about the ERA, save for Virginia that just ratified it. You don't know how to do that. Okay, so you chose a TEDx talk. I mean, it's one way.
I don't own a network or a newspaper. Maybe some of you do.
I have a YouTube channel. I reach at minimum about 400 people per broadcast. I mean, that's Not a lot of people, but it's a ripple effect kind of thing, right? Okay, I'll do it for you. Hey, everybody, look up the Equal Rights Amendment. The language hasn't changed since it was first proposed, since it's been ratified by 37 other states and now just recently Virginia. By all means, look it up and think about what its effects might be. Read some documentation on the pros and cons of it. And if you agree with it being put into the Constitution, contact your local state representative and or congressman, whichever comes first, senator, representative, and tell them, I would like the ERA passed. There you go. I have, tell you what, to our speaker, I have used my meager yet not insignificant platform to further your cause. I have rebroadcasted your message to the world, and I'm all for it. So there you go. I've done my bit. And I only do it. I only do it because of the work you have done before I got here. Right? I am not taking credit for your work. I'm simply rebroadcasting your efforts. I'm using my platform as a privileged white male to give you the microphone, metaphorically.
If you have any thoughts about how to help get the word out, please let me know.
Well, there you go. I have done my part. I've done my civic duty.
I do have one idea.
Okay.
Remember the words I mentioned earlier that are carved into stone on the outside of the Supreme Court building?
Are you going to recommend everybody get ERA tattooed on their arms or something?
Remember what they were? Anybody? Very good. Very good. Equal justice under law.
14th Amendment.
I say we start a campaign to get those words covered in black.
I see a stone carving and it should be painted black. La 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 la.
We should just protest and pester the Supreme Court to put a big black drape across the whole phrase.
It's not up to the Supreme Court to amend the Constitution. You are a lawyer, are you not? You do know how the ERA operates as an amendment. You talked about the Fifth Amendment, right, to the Constitution. Wasn't that the Fifth Amendment? I don't know. No, pleading the Fifth. Wait a second. To amend the no, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Anyway, you talked about the history of the ERA. You talked about the mechanisms possible for us to amend the Constitution. What does painting over letters on the Supreme Court going to do to pass the ERA? Sorry, Article 5. Yes, thank you, Advocatus. Article 5. That's Fifth Amendment, Article 5. Hey.
Of course, they'll never do it.
Then why bother? It's a pointless exercise, isn't it? Also, they can't do it because the Supreme Court does not amend the Constitution. They occasionally put a weird Band-Aid on it to ignore a flaw in their thinking, like Roe v. Wade, like DACA. My goodness. All right. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. I missed the intro. Wait, she's a lawyer? Oh, yeah. No, she is a lawyer. She is a lawyer. I'm not quite sure a lawyer of what, but she talked at length about her legal career running up against her reproductive cycle. So, yes, no, she is a lawyer.
But it doesn't matter because the campaign to do it will get the word out. People will ask questions. What's wrong with words?
So wait, the campaign to desecrate the outside of the Supreme Court will get the word out on the ERA. Boy, that sounds like some, what were those stop oil guys in Britain or whatever, or Europe that keep like dumping soup on paintings and things. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm sure you'll get a lot of support for that kind of action and activity. Thank you, Chicago Mike. She's a lawyer, and listening to this talk, I think she's a bad lawyer. If somebody played this for me and I was deciding upon legal representation, this would not be a mark in her favor. Let's put it that way.
Why do people want to cover them in black?
because you're over dramatic and I don't know, vigilantes?
We have to get the word out because the people in this country, and frankly, people around the world who think of this country as the greatest democracy on earth,
which it demonstrably isn't because it is a representative republic.
They all have a right and a need to know.
Then why don't you ask your audience to call their congressperson? That, of all the things you could do with this talk, that is the most effective way to do it, because that's the only way it's going to happen. Is if either they change the rules and the deadline on ratification, or the states that had previously ratified it re-ratify it and they set a new deadline, painting over letters on the Supreme Court. Okay, anyway. Thank you again, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Why must you turn this chat into a house of lies? 'Twas not me who first practiced to deceive. 'Twas our speaker who made the conversation thus weaker.
That for half the population in America, those 4 words equal justice under law.
Actually, there are slightly more women in the population than men. On average, there's like 51% women over. So actually, women are in the majority. They're not a minority. I mean, just on general population statistics.
Are a lie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Say for that. Oh, and you salute at the end. Say for that 14th Amendment thing. Okay, well, that was, boy, that was something else. That was something else. What can I tell you? I hadn't expected much from this talk, but I remain, it is still possible to impress me. It is still possible to impress me. Okay, well, this is the bingo. Wow, do we have anything left to do on here? This is the bingo card as it stands. I'm going to go over what is left one more time by myself. If you have arguments for squares yet to be circled, please hold on to them. This might be the thing that stops us from having a total blackout plus 3 WTFs, but we'll see. Self-vilification or wretchedness. No, I am challenged to think of a moment in this talk where our speaker denigrated herself in any way, shape, or form. Any way, shape, or form. Microaggression, unconscious bias. Yes, well, at least implied by how the law is or will be or otherwise applied to women and men, or versus. Also with the example from, was it Eunice Foote? I think it was Eunice. And the scientific community at the time in the 1800s. Patriarchy, certainly, because of the way the world worked back in the 1800s and the scientific community and education and so on and so on and so forth. And consequently, as a result of that.
Oh, won't somebody please?
Bingo. B-I-N-G-O.
Okay.
Right?
We have another bingo. All right, moving on. A list. Did she give us a list? My brain might be fried because I can't think that she used a specific list in this, but perhaps okay. I might need somebody to back me up on that one. But before then, holy cats, Alan Thyler. Again, thank you. Thank you so much, Alan. That's crazy generous of you for the samurai trophy-wielding Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie fucking wow.
That is a Satsu 2 cents Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan. I appreciate it very much. Hope you're having a good time. Also, Sadistic Atheist, good evening. Magister, good evening. Okay, moving on. A list. If you guys have an argument for a list, just hold on to it. I'll get to you in a moment. White supremacy. I mean, she mentioned slavery, but she never made race a key component of her argument. She made gender, not race. And just bringing up slavery, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't necessarily qualify as an argument of white supremacy. So I don't think so. Argumentative non sequitur. Can I count the ways I mean, if nothing else, her opening salvo of judges not giving her appropriate time off according to her based on her pregnancies, and also never, I mean, this kind of leaves out vital context, but never mentioning a specific law or bringing up the question she's always asked and not answering it. I mean, can I count the way?
Bingo.
What?
Of course!
Also, when I circled feminism, when I circled, I don't know when I circled the thing, maybe it was marginalization. Yeah, that was another diagonal bingo.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
Okay, I don't know if those StreamYard, when I'm listening to those little stingers, they're like pausing and stuttering. I don't know if that's coming across in the broadcast, but I hope it isn't. But if it is, I apologize. I guess it's my connection or something. Okay, so that is what we've got. We have 3 squares left. I think I have cited all of the current bingos. So okay, and just as a preamble, it is going to be an uphill battle for each one of these squares. I need a rock solid argument. I'm not going to give any quarter on this. I've probably been a bit too loosey-goosey with a couple of my own selections on here, but from this point forward, if you've got an argument for one of these squares, it's got to be good, and I've got to have some seconds and thirds or something from the rest of you in the audience. Somehow my voice has decided to leave me all of a sudden. Probably because of all of my whats and laughing and bewilderment. All right, so arguments for squares to be circled. Advocas Diabli, Scribble. She started off by saying she was going to give us a list of examples of how men stole women's ideas, even though she failed to actually do so. Did she say she was going to give us a list of examples? I mean, is that what she said? I know she said another example after she'd given us no examples, but was that a list? Okay, Magister is backing up Advocatus on that one. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. There we go. Ken Lee. Okay, well, okay, all right. Advocatus, I need either I need something else. Did she actually say that? Was there a list in this? I know I'm being picky, but there's a reason I'm being picky. There's a reason I'm being picky. The first, okay. First example, another example. All right. You sold me. All right. I mean, a list can be 2, and okay. All right. Okay. So with that, we have another bingo. All right.
Bingo.
What?
Of course!
All right. Now, these 2 are going to be real tough. Real tough. Self-vilification or wretchedness and white supremacy. Again, her simply bringing up slavery does not equate to white supremacy on its own. As far as I can recall, race was never a factor in this, and she never used the words white supremacy. If she'd said the words, that'd be an easy one, but she never did. And I don't think she ever made herself out to be, part of the problem. So if you've got an argument for either one of those, it's got to be a banger, as the kids say. Let's see. Advocatus say, trying to find the exact spot. She said list of examples. It's all right. I do remember her saying another example. So if she was trying to give us a bunch of things, there you go. And at least in concept, when she started giving us her stories at the top, she was giving us a list of examples. Yvonne Solomon, good evening. Ken Lee, good evening, if I didn't already say hello. All right, so any other arguments for the 2 squares left? And, if you want to give me a joke argument, fine, but if you have a serious argument, now's the time. Now is the time. I'm looking. Anybody? Okay, everybody's on the list thing. Yes, the list has been covered. List has been covered. All right. Roger Reynolds. Those are probably the only two she didn't hit. Yeah, amazingly enough. I mean, this would have been something if she'd hit those two. Sadistic atheist. You have my permission to lie and fill the entire board simply because she BS'd her way through the entire TED Talk. If she can do it, so can you, T. But no. No. I shall not descend to the level of my subjects, my criticisms. I don't know. The card is sacred. Let's see. Scribelite. I mean, she did make women seem to have a pretty wretched fate because the law isn't fair. Now that's plays victim. That's plays victim. Megan Ring. Maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I think she brought up white men when talking about Eunice Foote. Did she? I mean, it's a little thin. Did she say white men? Did she? No, everybody's saying she did. I only tell the truth. She did specifically say white man. Oh, boy, howdy. All right. I might be a bit too easy on this one, but she did slavery plus white men plus on and so on and so forth. And
Bingo.
What? Bingo! Yeah!
Of course!
I had a dog, and his name was...
What?
I had a dog, and his name was...
Bingo!
Of course!
One square. She never made herself out to be the villain, never demoralized, demeaned herself, never said she was part of the problem. Right? Oy. So close. But, I mean, that is an uncommon occurrence to have that much nonsense thrown at us in the WTF territory, and then as many squares as we had. No, Chicago Mike. Especially something like this, especially with a total blackout, which she wanted to do to the letters on the Supreme Court, mind you. Something like this needs to be legit. I can't just circle it and play the stinger. It's got to be something like this. Has to be legit. The fuck asshole. Self-vilification. She is a lawyer and part of the system that's keeping women down. Let's see. She did go on a rant. Now she didn't know how to get the word out about the ERA. Again, plays victim. She's not part of the problem. She didn't say, because I'm a woman, I'm worse or something. Megan Ring, she is part of the problem because she feels she isn't doing enough to get the word out. Yeah, no. I mean, begging for help doesn't necessarily mean that's not self-vilification. That's not self-vilification or wretchedness. That might be a cheap way to try to play victim points, but that's not. You're ridiculous. She is a villain that won't admit to it. She would never give you that square, gents. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Now, I'll tell you what. If somebody can come up with an absolute perfect argument after the fact, if somebody puts a comment in the comments afterwards that does this, I will do a special supplementary stream just to play the blackout stinger 5 times in a row. Just to celebrate that fact. But at this point, I don't think there is one, but I appreciate everybody giving it their best shot. We came close. We came very close. Kiever Dam, thank you so much for the rose. Ooh, a rose. Super chat. Thank you, Kiever Dam. Hope you're having a good evening. But with that, everybody, it's time to wrap things up for this epic, almost historic TED Excellence But if nothing else, we did learn a lot about the Constitution and federal law by having to fact check her live on the stream. There is a link in the chat for the Discord server for my channel. If you haven't joined the Discord server, you can now with that link, which is good for a day. All you have to do is click on that. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me and my moderators that you actually watched the stream and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is ERA. Yes, just say hello, ERA, on the Discord server, and you too can become a member of the Discord. Also, before I forget, please take a look at the top of the chat box for the GoFundMes and the fundraisers up there for our friends James Colley, Maddie Grisella, and Angry Illinoisian. Be very appreciative if you guys take a look at those and donate if you can. If you can't, please share them out on social media. Programming note, the Sunday stream will happen on Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, where I'll talk about a thing. Not sure what it'll be yet, but I'll find out then. Also, Sunday, again, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Midnight's Edge After Dark channel, I'll be appearing amongst the panel members for The Shit List, where this week, and I think the next 3 or 4 weeks of shows, will be about our top 15 Christmas movies split up into chunks of 5. So you'll find out about my bottom 5 of 15 Christmas movies on Sunday. If you like talking about movies, look for me there then. But with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this epic TED Excellence. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, nobody needs an ERA in my chat. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the fundraisers at the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity, especially, holy cats, you guys have been very, very generous today. I appreciate it. I will do my best to pay that forward soon. Thank you again. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Have a good rest of your Thursday evening. Have a good Friday ahead of you and weekend as well. I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.